Okay, hello everyone. I'm here without Frontier today, but as always, I have brought a guest on with me. Today I have Ceui with me.
Okay. Hi everyone. I'm Ceui. I'm from Saurus server, and I'm a pretty active PvP player in this global server. I think that's it. I finished top 16 last season, and is there anything else I should add about myself?
No, not really. I think that's good enough. So Ceui is a player from, I believe it was Vietnam.
Yeah, I am from Vietnam.
So it's actually 6 a.m. where I am, so I could match up my schedule with Ceui. But today we're going to be talking about Christiane and Suzette. This is a patch that came out about a month ago now on China server, and it should be coming to global side around the end of October. And this was quite a big patch, I guess, in terms of the character they added, because everybody's talking about Christiane. But before we get into that, we can talk about Suzette first, because I guess Christiane is more interesting, so let's save her to talk about her second. So I guess we can just jump right into it. We can talk about Suzette first. So Suzette is a pure AoE damage character, and Ceui, we've talked about this character before in on Discord or whatever, and you've compared her to Joshua before, and I think that's actually a really good comparison, because she's an AoE character. She does fixed damage after getting a critical hit, and she has a bunch of AoEs, and even her striking range is kind of similar to Joshua. She has a line skill, and she has another long range AoE skill. She also has kind of a unique teleport skill that does an AoE attack, but overall, you don't think she's very useful in the current meta, do you?
I actually have a lot of the thing to say about Suzette. So when the first we got the leaked skill set from WeChat, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So when I first read her skill set, I thought she would be pretty damn good, because the way they work 3C is that after you use the 3C immediately at the start of next turn, the second part of her AoE will trigger, and then it will be basically a double AoE combo, right? Mm-hmm. But after that, when she came out on the test server, and people tell me that that's not how it worked, I was super disappointed, because I actually see some potential in Suzette, but I think they kind of have to nerf her double AoE potential, otherwise she would be really good.
Yeah, the WeChat description at first was a little confusing with the way they worded it. It turns out that it's not that it happens in the turn right after. It actually takes a second turn after she fires the first time that it bombs again. So it's actually very, very delayed. So the use of that 3C, I kind of feel is that basically it doesn't get useful until you're kind of late game, and you can kind of force your opponent to stay in the same place for a long time. And I don't think that really happens in games anymore, does it?
Yeah, so basically, since I'm actually an AoE player. I play mostly AoE character over single target. When you play AoE character in this kind of meta right now, you want your AoE to be doing more than just damage. Of course, if it's super high damage, then it's fine, but you want your AoE to actually stick. And if it's just poor damage AoE, it has to be really, really good AoE. So I think this is where Suzette kind of falls short, because aside from her unique short range teleport, every of her AoE is basically just damage. So I don't want to say she's super bad or anything, because I do see the potential for her in the future. Maybe if she get a really good unique that can fix her AoE combo problem or something. But right now, I don't think she has a good role in the current meta.
Yeah, when I think of AoE damage characters, I think the one that has consistently had a presence is pretty much Ares, and that's only because he gets to do 2 AoEs in a row, right? When you think of other AoE pure damage characters, Vincent is decent, but you don't see him too often. Joshua, you really don't see that often anymore. Leonhardt is okay because he can AoE twice, right? Suzette does not have that. She's like Joshua, where she AoEs and then does a fixed damage tick. I think that's actually pretty strong. But the nice thing about fixed damage has always been that you can't counter it with Juggler, not really. For example, like Joshua could kill people past Juggler if the fixed damage was strong enough. And you can do something similar with Suzette, especially because she has the one AoE, the long range snipe AoE. It actually does plus 100% damage to the furthest target if you hit 3 targets. I think that's like one of the strongest AoEs we've ever gotten. But of course, the problem is that it is one line, and hitting 3 targets in one line is your opponent has to kind of line up for that, right?
There's a one cast skill that she has that I really like, which is the self reduction, the cooldown reduction skill that she got. Since most of the AoE characters, we usually play, they either have to, they usually go clock, right, or they have very short cooldown. You want to be do consecutive AoE to overwhelm your opponent and not give them a breathing room. So I actually kind of find this kind of funny that she actually has a unique mechanic that allows her to just basically reload herself and then fight AoE.
Yeah, she's not like other AoE characters where you have to either rely on clock, rely on low cooldown AoEs or whatever. She has a one cost skill that just straight up gives her all cooldowns -4. And it doesn't even have a downside. It actually gives her a buff. It gives her critical hit rate plus 30%. I guess the downside is that you're wasting a turn using the skill. But it just means she could just fire her AoEs over and over because her 3C is 6 cooldown. So if you use it, you're at 6 cooldown. You can use another AoE after that, and that's at 5 cooldown. And I guess after that, you can use the reload skill, and that should put your lower cooldown AoE back up so that you can use it again, and then you can use the 3C again. So she can continuously fire AoEs. I guess it comes in the wake of the Bolzel 3C, which was a rapid fire AoE that does 8 debuffs at once. So it's in comparison to that, it's nice, but you have Bolzel on the other side.
Yeah, I was about to say that I think if this skill is actually an act again skill and you slap a cooldown on it, I would think it's actually be pretty good because you can just use it and then use the AoE immediately, right? So it does make her a better consecutive AoE launcher instead of just spend a turn doing nothing and just reloading.
Yeah. So beyond her AoE skills, I think one interesting thing I guess she has is that she does actually have 40% soldier troop bonus, attack bonus, which is something you don't see very often on AoE characters. And she actually even has a guard pierce skill. She has riposte. So that's kind of an interesting extra option for her. I don't think she's going to use it very often, but I do think it's kind of a cool thing she can fall back on.
Yeah, I do like when AoE Assassin has the option to go ignore guard. Where we have Hibiko, she just randomly has 3 skills that actually allow her to ignore guard.
Yeah.
But normally you don't really bring them. But sometimes they come in very handy. For example, when you fight Hilda and you cannot bring the push skill, Sacred Count, you can just bring a guard ignore skill. For Suzette, I think it's probably gonna be the same if she's actually being used. If you find something like Rosen or Juggler and you know that your AoE is not going to do a lot of damage, you could just fall back to the Guardian.
Mm-hmm. And I guess the final thing I want to point out is her factions, because one of the first things we talked about when she came out was that her factions seemed kind of bad for an AoE character, because when you look at the Tensei faction and the Meteor faction, the Tensei faction tends to be more single target oriented, and the same with the Meteor faction, it's also assassin oriented. And when you think of the faction buffs you get from those two factions, which is Hilda's faction buff, that's single target focused, Zerda's buff, single target focused, Epsilon's buff, that's single target focused. Ares' buff is I think technically powers up AoEs, but it's kind of hard to activate sometimes. So her two factions are they're not bad factions in the sense that it's hard to get a faction buff, but it is bad in the sense that it doesn't actually help her AoE capabilities that much.
Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong, but I never played the Tensei game before, but I heard that Suzette is actually from the glory route. So when she first came out, I saw a lot of people being like very disappointed that she was not part of the glory faction. I agree with you about her faction. Like both of these factions, like Tensei is obviously the meta faction because Yulia is like a staple tank in the meta. But Meteor is not really in a very good place right now because I think both of their faction buff are kind of like underwhelming. And yeah, both of the faction are not very super AoE oriented. Like when you think of AoE, you think of like Dark or Legend faction or Mythical. Like those are like the poster child of AoE factions.
Yeah, I don't think I have anything else to say about Suzette. Do you have anything you want to add?
Well, I just want to say that I really like the design. Like it look really good. Like I think the artists like did a great job like redesigning most of the Tensei characters when they bring them over to mobile. And Suzette, it's not really a different. Like she looks really good. It's just a shame that like her kid doesn't really turn out to be all that great. But I think she has potential. Like I can see her like maybe later get a great unique and becoming like an usable character in the meta.
Yeah, I think I agree with that assessment. It's mostly she seems okay, but she needs like just one extra push for her to become really good. Okay, so now it's Suzette. So now we're done talking about Suzette. Let's let's talk about Christiane. So I mean, what do people even want me to say about this character? Really, like, do I even really need to comment on this character? So this character is she's Emilia. She's freaking Emilia, except she has everything that Emilia wishes she has. She does everything Emilia does except better. And then on top of that, she has a faction buff. She has a strong aura. She has team support. She has like everything. She's another crazy tank to add to the meta. And Jenna, of course, being that she has a faction buff and tank for the Princess faction, she's going to be, or we don't even think she's going to be because we already know because of the Season 8 playoffs that many of us have been watching. She has brought many Princess characters back into the fold. She is as good at tanking as Hilda because of her base damage reduction being 25%. She is worse at tanking physical than Hilda because she has fewer physical tanking options and she has fewer physical disabling skills, but in exchange, she has much better magic tanking abilities. And even though she does not have immunity to displacement for your team, she has a Landius-style aura that's optional, and she has very strong counters, similar to Layden to an extent, and she also has first strike against enemies that are attacking her once you get her all prepped. She does have a startup time. That's, I guess, a quote-unquote weakness of hers. It's not even really a weakness, I would say, because it's not that hard to get rid of the 2 stacks that she's going to have at 6 stars. I mean, before I go on, I guess I'm not going to go on a huge rant just yet. I guess I'll let you say something first, Ceui.
Oh, okay. Christiane, like, I remember when, like, the 2nd anniversary, like, I remember, like, as a long representative or something, like, they said that they want to break the dominant of Juggler and Landius, but they say they're not going to do it by adding another faction buff tank, and then now we are stuck with, like, 2 crazy faction buff tanks. It's like...
yes.
Okay, so, I think Christiane is a very complete character. Like, there's not a lot of weakness to her kit that I can talk about, but the strength that she brings is enormous. Like, just the fact that you can faction buff and tank in the first turn is like a huge quality of life, because like a lot of time when you play tank push, you had to spend like at least 2 turns to set up your team. Like, you have to buff and you have to put them into a good position and avoid being sniped or rushed turn 1. But Christiane, you just basically just turn 1, you can faction buff and you can immediately put your character in a much easier way compared to like normal tanks.
Yeah, so like Ceui mentioned, just to explain real quick, so her 3C is a faction buff and guard skill rolled into one. And this has a couple of implications. Like Ceui said, you get to put up your faction buff and your guard at the same time. But the other implication of this is that because this has faction buff style cooldown, that means that Christiane will always have her true range guard up. She doesn't have a downtime on her true range guard unless you dispel it. So she does not have the weakness of that many tanks have, where they're going to have that dead turn where you have to get into like a cross shape or whatever. She can just have the true range guard all the time. Also, her 3C and her skills, in fact, in general, are all they're literally Emilia skills. This 3C gives her the advanced Holy Guard buff, which is the same buff that Emilia's 3C gives her. So it's like they don't care about Emilia. They just gave up and just gave everything to Christiane and just made it better.
Yeah, so before we get like super in depth into Christiane, like I have to say something like as I think most people who are interested in PvP kind of watch the Chinese playoff, right? So during the playoff, we do see a lot of Christiane, but the meta right now in China revolve more about aggression and like tanks usually get picked a lot later compared to like previous season. Like in previous season, you see tank being picked like first or second, but right now in China, they're more about like getting the right DPS and getting more DPS than opponent, and sometimes they even go without tank. So even though Christiane, I think, is like a very, very strong tank, I would say like she's only worse than Hilda, to be honest. But you don't really see Christiane or even Hilda, for that matter, being picked that often, because the meta right now in China, like you still want tank in your box, but you don't want to early pick them because sometimes they could be very get pick.
So yeah, that's actually a pretty good discussion to be had, because one of the first thoughts I had when I saw Christiane was that it's right now, if you want to play single target, you have to get rid of Hilda. There's like no question. Like you have to first ban Hilda if you want to play single target and kill your opponent. However, right now on China server, there's a lot of people playing single target, or at least like half their box is going to be single target, and then the other half is going to be AoE. And then the two tanks you see are Hilda and Christiane, which might be confusing to some players, because you would think that with both Christiane and Hilda around, does that make like single target almost useless? And I actually think that is true to a degree. As many people might have noticed, that people are taking Elwyn out of the box. People are taking a lot of popular single target characters out of the box. Like, for example, Yulia is barely seen anymore. Like I said, Elwyn is barely seen anymore. And these characters, they're all about busting tanks, right? Or at least a lot of times they're about doing that. And being that there's two really strong single target tanks now, it's like wasting all your attacks on a tank that you might not even kill just means you're gonna lose. I don't know what you think of that, because it's kind of strange, because it's like you have these two tanks that make single target very difficult to play, but many people still play lots of single target characters.
So I think there's a compound effect of like the recent release of like many characters. We have a lot, like I think the top 3 DPS right now in China are like Tensei Jessica, Lucretia, and Kayura. Like no question, I think those 3 are the 3 strongest single target, right? And of the 3 of them, like only Kayura can actually bypass tank. But so when you because like the sheer power of them, like you most people gonna run like all 3 of those DPS in their boxes. Like maybe some people they drop Kayura, but I think she's probably the most popular DPS actually. If you see the statistic from like top 256, like Kayura was the most popular DPS. So I think like most people will still run like the triple mages. So because of the byproduct of the 3 mage being so strong, like people start running like the thing that actually good against those 3. Like SP Cherry, for example, like is a very anti-meta character. Like I don't think a lot of people expect her to be this good when her kit was announced. But she proved to be a really good like anti-mage unit that worked very well against all of those 3 meta tanks. So what happened is that like you now have like an arms race where you pick like a lot of like these pseudo assassins or long range DPS that can like attack you from like 7 or 9 or 10 range away, and the tanks become an afterthought because like no one cares about busting the tank anymore. They go through the tank through like either like displacement, or they just ignore guard, or they dispel the guard and they kill someone who's not in guard range. Like that's basically how I think how those single target box are function right now. Like, and of course we still have the ever-present like debuff box with like Bozo 3C and Kruger and Himiko and Rin. So I think those 2 are like the 2 most popular strategy right now in China. And both of those strategy you sort of like, you don't really need to ban a tank because getting rid of the DPS that counter your DPS will be more important. And versus a tank, you can rather just like ignore the tank, or you just kill everyone now and then you chip down the tank later.
Yeah, I mean, even thinking about those 3 DPS that you mentioned, which is Tensei Jessica, Lucretia, and Kayura. Kayura, of course, pierces guard, as you mentioned. Lucretia can sort of pierce guard. I mean, her puppet can pierce guard, but people don't use that very often. But the nice thing about Lucretia is that she hits so hard that she's pretty good at killing the tank regardless. And she can stay relatively safe thanks to the puppet. Also, she can do AoEs anyway. so even if you feel like single target isn't going to work, you can just bring Black Hole Armor or whatever. And finally, it's Tensei Jessica. And I would say Tensei Jessica probably has a bit of trouble killing tanks now. Like she has, especially Christiane. Christiane is probably really hard for her to kill. Hilda is like, it depends on how the Hilda is built, but usually Tensei Jessica can't kill Hilda either. But Tensei Jessica kind of makes up for it just via her teleport or utility. I think that alone is what makes her valuable in a box, not necessarily the fact that she has a single target or even tank killing potential.
I was about to say that like also the new armor, like the anti-torrent armor, also have like this mage a lot. Like when you obviously like Kayura, I don't think you're gonna go attacking tank with Kayura anyway, unless like tank is like the only target left. But like for Lucretia and Tensei Jessica, they appreciate like not being counter killed by thorns a lot from the new like Vortex rope, I think. So like when you look at like a typical popular box in the meta right now, like aside from the those 3 mages, right? Like you got like SP Cherry who doesn't care about tanks. You have Ares who can do AoE or like can displace the tank. You have Leonhardt who can you can basically outdo any tank, to be honest.
Yeah.
And like and the remaining DPS usually like a combination of like the player preference. Like if you play AoE, you go Bozo, Kruger, Himiko. You play like single target, you go like Helena or Altamula or Mario. Yeah, you go like Mario. those kind of DPS like who obviously don't really have a trouble with against tanks, right? So even though like the tanks, like I think Hilda is still a very, very powerful tank right now because she just does so many things. The popular DPS right now in the meta, they don't really have that much of a trouble against those tanks because they can either go switch to AoE or just ignore the tanks.
So on the topic of DPS who actually can't ignore tanks, since we're talking about Christiane, I guess so she's kind of forced into infantry class, right? Because I mean, you can run a cavalry Christiane, but you really limit her troop choice when you do that because of the animations on a cavalry class. And because of that, I would say like Elwyn is actually a huge concern for her. Do you think that's right?
Yeah, I think Elwyn is a pretty good DPS against Christiane. Like when you pick a single target composition with the purpose of trying to kill tank, you usually pick like a combination of DPS that can force the tank into a bad troops, right? So if I pick Elwyn and the enemy Christiane, if I think the enemy Christiane is going to bring Lancer, I will pick a DPS that can bring infantry troops, right? So that way, like both of my DPS can go and kill her. But the thing about Christiane is I think the way her conversion works, like you probably want to run bracer on her.
Yeah.
Also, she has like immunity to buff block. So normally, if you run blood pack, you kind of want both of the immunity, but she already immune to buff block. So I think it's kind of like a waste, and you do want like both MDef and defense on her. So you're gonna run bracer on Christiane. So the thing is, if you pick Christiane, like I think you probably can preemptively ban Elwin because even if he doesn't kill Christiane, like getting heal block is pretty annoying.
Yeah. So I guess we can take a look at the rest of her kit here. We've already talked about her 3C, and the rest of her kit is, like I mentioned earlier, she kind of stole Emilia's skills. She's got like Justice, which was Emilia's attack skill. She's got Holy Guard, which of course was Emilia's 2C guard as well. So let's take a look at some of the more unique things she can do. She has both defense and magic defense command, which I don't think you're ever going to see her bring, but it's just kind of interesting. I think usually the 2-cost skills she's going to bring is her command aura buff. So as I mentioned before, she has an aura that's basically the Landius aura, and the interesting thing is that it's actually optional on her. You don't have to bring it if you don't feel like you need it, but basically it's like she completely replaces Landius in this regard, or maybe not necessarily. It is slightly weaker than Landius's aura, I believe, but I think most people think because of how much else Christiane can do, they basically booted Landius in favor of Christiane. So in addition to the Landius aura that this gives, this also gives another command that reduces magic damage taken as long as you have 2 female allies. So obviously this is a big problem for, say, Kayura. It's a problem for the mages. So basically, if you want to use magic damage, you should probably be banning Christiane.
Yeah, I think in the stand-up setup for her will be like the 3C, the Flower Garden skill, and the Aura. So one thing I like about her 3C and the command is that it turn all her command into 3 range, right? Mm-hmm. When you use the 3C. So actually what I've seen from Chinese player is that they're running like 3 of life on her to turn like the 3 of life aura into like 3 range as well.
That's actually a cool idea.
Yeah. I really like the aura. Like you said, it's like a weakened Landius aura, but like both of the effect, like I think all three of the effects are really strong. Like it's like lower critical chance, lower magic damage, and lower range damage. So if you find something like Tensei Jessica and you have like Christiane, like a lot of your units will be like a lot more resilient, and I think some of them can actually survive. Like if you build right and you stay near Christiane. But I do want to talk about her one cost skill. I think like many people already saw the cheese.
Yes, the cheese.
with Toa, and I think Helena and even like Rosalia and Luna can actually use the cheese as well. But to be honest, I think it's a pretty neat thing to have, but I don't think it's the main purpose that you should go for when you pick Christiane. Like I think if you have Christiane and you have like Toa in box, like maybe your opponent will be more wary and ban Toa like earlier, but
or just ban Christiane.
It is a cool thing to have, but I don't and actually pretty funny to see Demon Prince, the champion of last season, like basically just cheese someone in his like 256 round with Christiane and Toa.
It's like one of those joke combinations that you use to troll people with. Yeah, I mean, when I first saw that, I was just like, "Is this like an oversight? Are they gonna nerf this?" So far, they haven't.
Yeah, I don't think it's gonna be nerfed. Like, it's a cool thing to have, but usually, like your target is gonna be kind of limited with this combo anyway. Like, I think most of the people who die to this combo is like Licorice without like Bracer, but it's still a pretty strong combo. Like, even if it's like gimmick. If you give them and you open up an opportunity for them to like cheese you with this, like then it's gonna like cost you a lot of painful memory.
Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and just explain it for anybody in the audience who has not seen footage of this yet. So basically, Christiane's 1C skill is a selection skill of 2 different skills. So the first one is just like both of them removed stacks from herself. She starts the battle with stacks that actually make her weaker, and she gets stronger over time, which is what I mentioned earlier. She has a ramp up time. The other thing that this 1C skill does is that it has a choice of one. You can lower AoE damage taken by one of your allies, which of course is very useful if you want to be like, if you want to protect like one particularly frail ally from dying to Ares or something. This is really nice. The other effect is that if you use it on them, it will essentially give them a kind of like a sword breath style AoE. It says like after taking action, if they deal no damage, they will deal 0.1 times AoE damage within 1 ring. So basically what people did was that they put this on like Toa or Luna or Rosalia. Basically anybody who can move a turn and then not lose buffs, because you would be able to do the AoE from this, and since you didn't lose the buff, you'll be able to act again and then do the attack again. And if you combine it with stuff like Luna's faction buff and wind pressure, or something, like you could activate her faction, like Luna's faction buff, which does fixed damage. You can do it over and over and over. If you have Blood Sword, you can activate Blood Sword over and over and over. If you have Scarlet Reaper, you can activate that multiple times. So, and you get to do this while standing in complete safety, right? Because you don't have to actually engage anybody in battle. It just does an AoE. That's all I guess. Yeah, that's basically what it is. It's just like kind of a cheese strategy where you just repeatedly do a bunch of free AoEs on somebody. This is why I compared it to like the Angelica plus like Sumire combo way back a couple seasons ago. It's one of those things where once you run into it once, you realize like, okay, it's this strategy.
Yeah. Also, I want to say that even like most people know about this this strategy. I think the other component of the one god skill is actually very powerful. Because it doesn't have a cooldown. Like you just put it on someone who's like inherently weak to AoE, and I think they just basically guarantee the character to survive. It's kind of like having Noemi talent on them. It's really good. I think, like especially if you run something like, I think Holy Tensei Jessica, for example, who is inherently weak to just Talisman AoE from like Ares or Aaron Rock. So I think like in the long run, like this part will be the more useful component of her one god skill. But right now, I think the other component is more infamous.
Yes. Okay. That's Christiane. She's just another crazy tank. Princess faction getting a resurgence. I don't know what else to say. Do you think we missed anything here? There's one more thing I want to mention. Like, so if we think like one patch before, like they start buffing Princess action before Christiane was out. Like, if you remember, like they give Licorice like a unique. They make SP Cherry, and Lucretia was like a very meta-defining characters. So they actually prep in advance for the coming of Christiane. I think so. A tank's value is, I think, in my opinion, a tank's value in the meta is not just about the unit itself. It's about like the other unit that they can enable. And so for Christiane right now, like half of her value is because like there are several very important princess characters in the meta right now. Like I think there's like the 4 of the top 5 healers right now in the meta are princess, like Rosenseal, Liana, Licorice, and Ceui, I think. Those are the like 4 out of the top 5 healers. And then you have like Lucretia and SP Cherry, who is like very popular in bots as like one of like the meta defining as character, and the other is like the anti-meta characters. So what I'm saying is that like we might even see some old princess unit getting buffed like after Christiane to push her even further. Like maybe someone like Rosalia can get a unique, or like I don't know, maybe like Tiaris or Liana might get a unique or a 3C. We don't. Exactly. We haven't seen the Liana or Tiaris 3Cs yet.
So that's my point. I think like to be honest, I think even though like unit wise, I would say Landius is also offer a lot, but right now like we don't have enough like strong legend characters to justify him over Christiane. So maybe we will see Landius being back in and replay Christiane if we got like some crazy jealous DPS like in 1 or 2 upcoming patch. But yeah, so aside from Hilda, I think Christiane and Landius gonna be like the other second choice tank that people not gonna run in the near future.
I do think it's true that the half of their value is from who they can enable, but it's just there's also the fact that Landius Landius just is, when you compare him to Hilda and the Christiane, he pales so much in comparison in terms of just pure tanking ability. Landius used to be the best tank in the game. Like he was, he had a revive, he had all that range reduction. He was even good at tanking melee because he was good at countering. But now it's like you compare him to Hilda and Christiane, it's like actually a really huge gap. And of course, Landius is well known for being pretty weak to melee attacks. And his unique didn't really help with that, and he's not even that much more impressive than Christiane or Hilda at ranged defense tanking. In fact, I would say that Christiane is actually better than Landius at tanking ranged attacks, because what relevant ranged physical attacks are there really?
I saw like some crazy footage of like a mage like just do like 40 damage against Christiane for like 5 attack in a row. Yeah, it's like this character is crazy. I think like I'm not sure I would call Christiane a meta defining character, but she is very close to it. Like is my feeling on her. I do think Hilda is like if you offer me a choice between Hilda and Christiane, like who I pick, like I would pick Hilda like 9 times out of 10, because I think what she offers is a lot more convenience. Like she cannot be mobi down, she cannot be pushed, she has like anti-push for the entire team.
Yes.
Which is like part of the main reason why a lot of the new DPS switch to, kind of like other form of disruption instead of just like pushing or like ODS like used to be a really good combo with single target character. Like you just use him to push someone out of guard range and have your single target character like finish him, right? But like Hilda basically completely stopped that. But Christiane, you don't really have that, and because she usually bring bracer, you can actually mobi down her. You can you can push her or you can push other character away from her. So what I'm saying is that she does have some minor weakness, but she is very close to a meta-defining character, in my opinion. Obviously not on the level of like Lucretia or Kaira.
So basically what I was saying with Landius is that the power creep is pretty clear in terms of just the tank power, right? Like it started with Albedo. Albedo was just like straight up better than a lot of pretty much every other tank at that point in terms of tanking ability, but she had all these downsides. She didn't have a faction buff. She was very passive. She didn't do very much against AoE. And then they released Hilda and now Christiane. Both of them are not particularly good against AoE, but of course Hilda can prevent displacement. Christiane has an aura that's similar to Landius, but they do all of this while also being as tanky or almost as tanky as Albedo is, which to me is just kind of crazy.
Yeah, that's true. Like, if you look at like Christiane on Hilda, like just they do like 6 different things other than just tanking. Just like just their presence alone, like give you so many little things that can like completely change the matchup around. Like, we used to think like Landius like offer a crazy amount of utility, right? Like his aura does like 5 different things alone, and it was a very like when they released Landius, I think like Landius were like very far ahead of other tanks. Like he just does so many things on his own.
I mean, in season one, it was first ban Landius like all the time.
yeah. And so back then, like the legend faction become strong because of Landius mostly. Like there's a lot of other good DPS back then, but they weren't really played because they aren't buffed by Landius. That's what I felt like. But right now, I think it's more tank serving the DPS rather than backwards. So it's just show you how crazy Landius was at release and how we come like really far. So to like having like two other tanks that's like basically better than.
Okay. Yep. And that was Christiane. And what is becoming of our horrible meta? Do you have anything else you want to add here?
No, I think we covered most of it.
Okay.
Like maybe some like funny interaction, like like a lot of people run outer bullet, like they run him against Hilda, and then he just like wait until like her guard is down and he suck you in, and then he kill two people for free, right?
Yeah.
You can't do that with Christiane.
Right.
So that's all for me. I think we covered all.
All right. Well, with that out of the way, I guess we can talk about the 3Cs now. So just like the past month, and I believe the month before that as well, they only gave us one SSR 3C yet again, and two SR 3Cs because they're running out of SSR 3Cs and they're just like stalling for time, I guess. So let's just start by talking about, I guess, Leonhardt's 3C. Long awaited for many people because Leonhardt was the season 1 nightmare. He was absolutely insane in season 1, and he was still crazy in season 2. And he's fallen off a bit, but I think he's always been good. Like he's never been like he's never been like super crazy meta anymore, but he's always been like pretty good because his AoEs are just really good. He dispels 2 buffs. They're really big range if you have a balance blade, and even without that, they're pretty decent range. And he, of course, does a lot of damage on top of that. Of course, he's been running into problems because of not only because of his range, but because of his tankiness not being as impressive anymore. So he gets a 3C now, and unfortunately, I don't think they solve either one of those problems. Basically, this is it's very lore-friendly 3C because this is something Leonhardt did do in the Trails games. He gets a summon skill, which is a body split for himself. So this summon actually is weaker than Leonhardt. I believe has like I forgot how much percentage reduced damage it does. Like it does like 30% reduced damage or something like that. But it has Zero Storm, it has Ethereal Fire Machete, and Substitute. And the Substitute skill basically says that it will take a hit for Leonhardt within 2 blocks, so it guards Leonhardt. So basically, it sort of helps Leonhardt with the fact that he can die easily because it guards him. But the problem is that you want something to protect him when he teleports in rather than after he's done his AoEs. So, it's nice, but it doesn't actually solve the biggest problem I think was facing Leonhardt. So not to say that this is not a good 3C or anything. It is a very nice 3C to pair with his Fusion, Assure Slash, and of course, third skill is going to be his Teleport, or I guess Zero Storm. But yeah, it just means he gets to do more AoEs. It doesn't really change that much about Leonhardt, I think. What do you think?
Okay, so I think we used to have like a running joke, right? Like we saw like every single collab character get 3C, and like we asked every patch like, where's Leonhardt 3C? Yeah. And I think like not just me, but a lot of people was like, I don't even know what to give Leonhardt because like I think his kit was already really powerful, and if he just like one small step away from being like broken in like season 1 again. Yeah. So I think this 3C is actually a pretty good. It does help him with doing more damage, I think, and it also have his tank push potential because like when the summon died, he gets like minus cooldown reduction, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So I think it's a decent 3C. Like it doesn't break the game. It doesn't like make Leonhardt OP like we used to suffer in season 1 where like people speak Leonhardt every game.
Yeah.
But honestly, I think Leonhardt has always been a good character, just like you said. Like even now, last season, I think there are some people who actually use Leonhardt as a counter to the Tensei team because they are very arrogant heavy, and if you land like a good Dark Emperor fusion sword on like their Mario or Arian Rod or Tensei Jessica, you can actually store out for at least 3 turns. So I think I can say that like I think it does improve his damage just a little bit, because like his combo before was already really good damage, but they kind of fall off because people got more HP enchant and like ancient beckoning stone. So they can't really make it like too high modifier again, or otherwise like it would just like be all kind of broken. But I think it's a good three card skill. And looked very cool too. We actually saw some Leonhardt in Chinese playoff. Actually, there are some people who actually run Leonhardt in Chinese playoff and had success with it too. I think there's one player who make it really far with Leonhardt, and he mostly used like his 3C and Emperor to like try to punish people who doesn't pick tank. And you just like teleport Leonhardt in and you do Emperor and you got like both him and summon to attack someone.
Yeah, we usually see at least one person using Leonhardt in almost every playoff, right? Like he's always been good, and he's always fit into the right strategy. And like you said, it was really easy to give him a 3C that would have completely broken him again. So I do think they were trying to give him something that was good without giving him something too crazy. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what else to say here. It's a good skill, but like I said, I don't think it helps him a lot with his biggest problem, which is that he used to be able to teleport in safely because his damage reduction was enough from the teleport. But nowadays, because everything is so strong now, he can't really do that anymore.
Yeah, I think it doesn't really change his identity or play style. It's just basically good old like Leonhardt, like go in, do like 2 or 3 AoE and then that's it. And maybe you pick off someone. I think there's one thing that I kind of like about his 3C is that he has a passive disable component. So there used to be like I used to run Leonhardt to cheese Landius in season 3, I think. Like I just teleport in and I Dark Emperor with detect to disable guard from Landius and I kill someone.
Oh yeah.
So
people do that.
Yeah. So I really like the fact that his 3C actually play a homage to that. It actually has a chance to disable passive, and you can actually initiate with that 3C and maybe try to pick off people. So that's all I have to say about the 3C.
Okay, so I guess we have the 2 SR characters left over. So first we have Serena's 3C. Serena's 3C is basically, like, it's kind of interesting because they, instead of giving her a 3C guard like they give to a bunch of other tanks, they just gave her basically like a power stab skill. Yeah, I mean, she was missing a skill that was similar to power stab, so that's kind of nice. But my problem with Serena is the same problem I've had with her since she was launched, which is that they seem to have designed her with the intent that she's supposed to be like an off-tank and DPS hybrid because she has all these really good offensive soldiers. But they also gave her like really bad soldier attack boost, so it doesn't help complement the fact that she's supposed to be doing damage when she's not tanking. You're supposed to use her as like a tank when your main tank is low on HP and she'll guard them automatically or something like that. And then the rest of the time she can use her defense conversion to do a lot of damage. But because her troop bonus is like 10% attack or whatever, it's just like, what? I guess the only other thing to say is that this has a command in it that's basically, that's kind of like a last rites effect. It was actually pretty strong, but unfortunately I don't think Serena, like, the problem with Serena is the rest of her kit, right? Like, even though this is a pretty decent 3C, the rest of her kit doesn't work that well. Also, because Landius isn't that popular right now, so I guess you wouldn't get a buff for her that easily either.
Yeah, so I think about Serena, like, her problem has always been she in the wrong faction. I think, like, because like you have Landius, like, right? You don't really need another tank from the Yellows faction. So like Serena, and like if you go the bruiser route, I don't think she does enough as a bruiser to justify a place in a box. When they were like buffing a lot of like strategic characters like Muller and Emmerich, I thought that they would actually keep Serena a 3C faction buff for strategic faction, like like we saw with like the recent Freya, and like Freya. But I think like Serena just never got like the relevance of like Freya in terms of like plot or lore. So I think it was like wishful thinking, because I actually kind of like Serena as a in terms of design and in terms of skill, even though like she's kind of like unnecessary in the Jealous faction, because she doesn't really fulfill any role that the faction really need, or even like any role that the box really need.
Even when she came out, like it was people talked about her in comparison to Vargas, right? Like, you know, if you're going to compare her to another SR character, it's like Vargas seemed to be better in most situations. Vargas was easier to use, and Vargas was actually better as a DPS in the sense that, you know, Vargas had Battle Cry, which is a really good 1C. He had Power Stab, and he had Armor Pierce. He had all these options. Serena didn't have Power Stab at all. She would have to use Unbreakable Guardian to get her attack up, and then use something like Ram or whatever. The most unique thing was that Serena had 2 revives. So I will say, like, I mean, basically trying to emphasize her role as an off tank, right? Like I said, you don't use her as the main tank. You use her as the off tank because she automatically guards somebody within 3 squares if they are at low HP, 70% or lower with her unique equipment. So the idea is that she has 2 revives. You know, she protects your main tank if they get low on HP, and the rest of the time she's like, I guess she uses this 3Cs to stab people.
Yeah. I think like if you look at her other skill, like she actually has a lot of like pretty neat skill. I think that's like, I think what the skills that you kind of want on someone who is not a tank. Like she has like defense support, attack support, and like RAM and a lot of other pretty decent skill. Like I think if you give her like a 3C that also a god and a faction buff like Freya, I know it's greedy, but if you actually give her that, like it would actually make her a lot more, you know, useful in my opinion. Like because like she can actually do some cool thing other than just tanking. That's the point.
Yeah, I mean that's why I mentioned that my problem with her has always been her troop bonus being 10% attack. If she had like 30% attack or something, she could maybe make better use of all those offense troops she has, because she actually has a lot of really strong offensive troops. She has like dragoons, I think she has like zealots, she has and she has like heavy infantry are sort of offensive, so she has like this combination of like offensive troops, which was very odd for tanks like when she came out. But it just didn't, like her kit with her troop choice and her troop bonus, like it just didn't make sense. And it still doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it was confusing. Like I remember when she got like I think when she was released, she only had like 1 tier 3 class, right? Because I remember she got like another class, tier 3 class later, and that second tier 3 like gave her like like I think gave her like entrenchment, like a very powerful 1 cost passive actually. I think right now op tank is you know, like I wouldn't say unnecessary, because like sometimes they can be very useful. But you only see like maybe 3 characters that actually is kind of successful as op tank right now in the meta, like which are like Juggler. I wouldn't call him a tank right now. The other 2 are like Bernhardt and Muller. So when you try to do like too many things at once, like sometimes you end up like doing like not all of them very well. I think that's the problem with Serena here. Like she just like have too many focus that none of them are actually kind of there yet.
It's funny that you bring up those 3 off tanks, because you'll notice one thing about all 3 of them. All 3 of them have a faction buff.
Yeah, that's my point. That's why I said like she would be like a lot more. I would say a lot more viable if she actually has a faction buff. Like, it doesn't even need to be combined with God like Christiane. Like I think faction buff combined with God is like one of the most ungodly combinations you can get on a tank characters.
Well, I mean, it's unfortunate. I think, this is her last upgrade. People are just going to have to hope she gets an SP class sometime, which I don't think is going to happen. She's not popular enough. They're going to do a lot of the main characters first before they do Serena. Yeah.
Yeah. I think we cover everything about Serena.
All right. So last but not least is Sophia. Sophia, right now the healers that are in the meta are just way too strong. Sophia is still she's still good. She still has very unique things to offer a box. It's just that the healers that are available are so strong. Like Florentia, what do I need to say? Like Rosenseal, what do I need to say? Liana, Act Again, very strong, very good cleansing. Sissy White, she wasn't as popular last season, but people are using it a little bit more now. Sophia, she's an SR character and she's kind of stayed that way. She has a few unique things. She still has Rewind. She still has her mini faction buff from her armor. And now she has her 3C, which is very simple and straightforward. It's like 10 words long, which we don't see very often anymore. But it just makes it so that her talent buffs are undispellable now, and she has a better mass heal, which actually dispels before healing. Dispels 2 debuffs before healing for the mass heal amount. So it's a nice 3C. It's simple, it's useful, but like I said, the other healers are just so strong, and it's very hard for her to keep up. And I want to note that the undispellable buffs from her talent in some cases might actually be a downside if you don't want to keep the defense buff or the healing up buff. And instead you wanted to increase your chances of keeping your attack buff or whatever. This is actually detrimental.
I really like the 3C as well. I think is when I see what I consider a good 3C, usually something that combine well with the kit of the character and it's not really super overpowered. So I think this is a pretty good 3C. Sophia does also receive a pretty decent upgrade in the new staff. I think that when you cast skill on ally, they dispel one more debuff, which helps her a lot because one of her problem before was that she cannot handle debuffers very well. So I think with this 3C and the new staff, she actually a pretty decent cleanser right now. But the thing is about her is just like you say, the healers right now, the meta healers right now is just way too powerful, and they combine very well with each other too. Before, I think a lot of people don't really want to end up having 2 healers on the team because you will lack EPS, right? But when you have someone like Florentia or Liana or even Licorice on the team, it's basically having another DPS. So right now, you have to have that kind of playmaking potential, like the other healers, to be considered a meta healers. But when you look at Sophia, there was a time when she was pretty meta. During season 5 when mythical AoE team was very popular, and she just got her unique, so she become a really good buffer for people like Green, like Aaron Rod. But I think the meta right now is just way too fast paced and favor aggressive play over stalling. So it's gonna take a very drastic meta change for Sophia to be that kind of status again. But I do think it's a good 3C, and in the long run I still think Sophia is a very handy character to have, and she's really cheap to build. So
yeah, for sure. And we usually a lot of times on this show I tend to focus on endgame players and endgame PvP matches and stuff, but for up and coming players, if you're a mid game player or if you're still dealing with PvE stuff, this just makes Sophia better than ever. She's a great healer. All right. So now that we have the 3Cs out of the way, I guess we can talk about the exclusive equipment they added this time, which is Ares and Yulia. So I guess I'll start with Yulia's. Yulia's is so a lot of people, when they first saw Yulia's exclusive, they thought it looked really strong. But I actually saw it and I was kind of this is one of those things where people are going to think it's really strong, but it's actually not that good. I'm not saying that it's bad. It's actually really nice to get, it's basically the Godly Menace effect, right? You get the Godly Menace HP heal and damage to the enemy effect every time she activates her revive. But the way I'm thinking of it is like, if you're in a situation where Yulia took a single target hit, your opponent is probably going to be able to follow up and kill her, unless you get a turn right after that with Yulia, and you use her 3C. I guess you combine the 3C with the healing from this armor, and you might heal back up to revive range. That would be kind of nice, but it also does not save her against AoEs, which has continuously been Yulia's problem, right? So, and when you compare this also to like some of the other things she could wear, if you're using an infantry Yulia, you could be using Aeolus armor or like the Forbidden Protector's armor instead. I actually think both of those might still be better than this. And if you're still on Holy Yulia, you of course have Tenuo's robe, and you can even use like the Anti-Thorns robe. I think either one of those still have your place over this one. So, not to say that this is a bad robe or anything, and it's free. Like if you have bad luck with drops and everything, you can just buy this. Well, I don't mean free as in a free, like you use challenge points to get it, but if you have bad luck with drops, then you can get this over a Tenuo's robe or whatever, and that would be very nice. But overall, like I don't think this is actually that useful. I don't know what she thinks, Ceui.
Okay, so when I first saw this armor, I thought that this buff stacked with Godly Menace.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I thought it would like, if it stacked with Godly Menace, it would be like actually pretty decent. I think Yulia right now, I don't really like. Okay, first I must say that I don't think Yulia is really good in the meta right now. Because the usually what you do against Yulia is you either like AoE debuff her, right? Or you just like assassinate her, and then like you finish her off with like another AoE or single target. So, and because she's like very, very slow, and she requires a whole team to ban pick and support her, like play around her pretty much. Like she's basically like always your main win condition when she's picked, so you have to pick a team around her. It's kind of warp your ban pick and warp your game plan around her a lot. So that's one of the main thing that I always don't like about Yulia. Like obviously I played Yulia before, like when she was meta, she was basically a one-man army. Like you could just like pick her and ban OD buff and she just massacre everyone. But I don't think she's that strong anymore. And this unique doesn't really fix her core issue. Like before Yulia got a unique, I often like theorize. I thought they would give her something like boost her mobility or something like that.
That would be nice.
Maybe some kind of like epic boot, but for Intel. But I think this robe is okay. It's nothing really to write home about. Yeah, and like you said, I prefer to go anti-dawn robe, or if I go holy, or like the forbidden defender armor if I go infantry, because like infantry armor is actually really strong, like most of them.
So yeah, it's like not bad, but kind of so next we have Ares' helm. Now it's kind of funny because people kept saying like Yulia's armor is really good and that Ares' helm is a disappointment. I thought basically the opposite. I thought Ares' helm looked really strong and Yulia's armor was like just okay. Because Ares' helm says that if he has a faction buff, the special faction buff effect, then he will get plus 30% damage when using a normal attack. And when he enters battle and attacks, he will get one of his stacks of his talent for free. So the reason I think this is actually a really, really good exclusive is because it makes faction buff Ares much, much stronger, which means it makes the Tensei faction much, much stronger, as if they really needed that. So one of the problems with faction buff Ares has always been that, okay, if I bring faction buff, I can either bring an attack skill, or I have to bring his 3C, in which case I can't have an attack skill. But since he does plus 30% damage on his normal attack now, that means when you bring his faction buff plus his 3C, that means you get like 25% damage from Ride the Wind on his 3C. You get, I believe, 25% up to 25% damage from his faction buff, and then you get another 30% damage from this helm. So that normal attack is actually hitting really, really hard. And even when you're not using him as the faction buffer, if you use him alongside Hilda or something, after he AoEs, a lot of times he has to do normal attacks afterwards to help clean up or something. And getting another 30% damage on that normal attack is really OP, in my opinion. So yeah, that's my thoughts on the helm. I don't know what you think.
I agree with you. I actually think this is one of the strongest unique that Zilong ever released so far. Actually, I put it on the same level as like Licorice unique, or
Oh wow,
maybe not on the level of like Helena unique. Like that unique just okay, but
yeah,
I think this one fixed several of Ares' biggest issues. Actually, so the first, like you say, is it's incentivize player to actually bring faction buff on Ares now. Like normally, like you only bring faction buff Ares when you have like Florentia and like maybe one or two more really strong Tensei DPS like Jessica or Mario. Like, and even then, sometimes you don't really bring. You don't even bring, because like just having another attack skill on Ares can change a lot. But like this help, I think this unique have like all kind of Ares. Like it have AoE Ares, it have like single target Ares, it have faction buff Ares. So because like what I see is that like his normal attack without skill now is pretty comparable to a noble chap attack. Like, and like you said, like sometimes when you go in with Ares, you want to do single target with him the next turn, right? And having the option to go faction buff but still does great single target damage is a huge boon, not only to Ares but to the Tensei faction, because it also makes like a lot of the Tensei DPS like more viable, because they can get like basically another faction buffer in the box. Like I don't think anyone considered Ares a faction buffer before. To be completely honest, like most people who play PvP like very rarely will bring faction buff on Ares. Okay, so the other thing about this unique is the sweeping formation thing. Usually when Ares go in, he has to go through at least one enemy to retreat, right?
Yeah.
So I think with this unique, when because like when you initiate with melee attack, you don't really have to go through someone else to retreat. So it makes him a very good initiator. Like you can just like go in and attack someone, pull people out of position, and like run back 4 tiles and get out of dangers, which is really underrated, because most of the time you pick Ares not for the damage or the AoE, is for the disruption potential.
That's a really good point. Yeah, so you actually mentioned how his normal attack compares to Noble Charge. So the thing about Noble Charge that people sometimes forget is that if Noble Charge fails to crit, it is actually a terrible skill. it only does 1.4 times damage, I believe it was, and it does a bunch of extra crit damage on top, right, if you get to crit. But Ares' crit rate has always been really bad, especially if you're fighting against like Landius with his crit rate reduction aura, and of course Christiane has a rate reduction aura, and Hilda just says you don't get to have a crit at all. So like compared to that, like a Noble Charge with just as 3C, right, it's like 25% damage on top of 1.4 times attack skill, if assuming you don't crit. So if you compare that to his faction buff plus 3C set, like okay, so he 3Cs, he gets 25% damage, and then his normal attack will have plus 30% damage, so 55, that's already 55% damage. And you'll get another 5% damage for every enemy around you from Ares' faction buff. So I think like it will actually get stronger than Double Charge if you are like in a right situation.
Yeah. Also, like you have to remember Hilda and Rosenseal and Burn, like the 3 people who actually buff Ares that normally in box. Like all 3 of those buffs also buff like single target damage. So I think except Hilda, is like skill damage or something. So
yeah.
But Bernhardt is like free 18% and Rosenseal is like free 12%. So it add up a lot, like with like Ride the Wind and this unique and the faction buff. It's like his normal attack will hit like a truck.
Yeah, it's almost like he gets to do assault for free. Like it's almost that strong.
Yeah, and you always kill most squishy people. Like maybe not kill people like Helena. I don't think he can kill Helena on the tiles.
Yeah, probably not.
But like every single mage, like he can kill. Like all the mage. Like maybe even can kill. I don't know if he can kill Cherry, but I don't know. Maybe he can.
If you bring, obviously he would be using a Ragnarok. So if he was using a Ragnarok, then maybe. Sherry is pretty tanky. That is one of the perks of her. And I guess like that's one of the other things, like right now, a lot of the DPS people pick in the meta are not particularly tanky. A lot of the mages are very frail. Of course, anybody using Last Rites is typically pretty frail. Basically, the only really tanky DPS you see very often is Helena. Ultimator is sort of tanky, and Sherry is a little bit tanky, but yeah, and Bernhardt is very tanky, of course. But yeah, a lot of DPS people use are just... I think they'll die to this pretty easily. Even if he's not using a Ragnarok, I think they might die to this.
Yeah, also, when we talk about unique, like I usually like compare them to the normal option that the unit run, right? Like I think they try pretty hard to incentivize people to not go Tenyo. Like that's why every single mage or healer unit is there just ahead. Yeah. But for Ares, I think the head slot is okay. Like his other option are like anti-heal block helm or the King Crown. Like I don't think the anti-heal block helm is that good, but King Crown is really nice for AoE wombo combo. So it's I think it's pretty like substantial miss, but this unit is like very strong, so I think he will do fine. I would go with this unit like 9 times out of 10.
All right. I think that's all I got here. So next we got a very unexpected SP hero addition. We got SP Narm. I don't think anybody expected him to add SP Narm. This was really out of left field for a lot of people. So SP Narm, she becomes a cavalry archer style unit. She gains the Elven Cavalry Archer troop, and her talent is basically the same talent as the talent before, where she gets more attack. Although this time she inflicts a mobility down -1 that actually lasts. I believe it lasts permanently. But it does not disable guard, which is very strange, like mobility down, because most mobility down in this game do disable guard. This is one of the only times where mobility down debuff does not disable guard. And it also inflicts a damage taken buff, but only from SP Narm. As far as her stats, her soldier bonus stayed mostly the same. She already had 40% attack, so it really couldn't get much better than it already was. So they just sort of spread the defenses around a little bit differently. And her hero stats are really crazy because they made her attack go up by like 60 points, which is just like really, really crazy. Aside from that, I'm a little bewildered by this SP because it kind of feels like it's mostly the same character. It's just that she has slightly more move, she has much higher attack, and she has 2 new skills that are like kind of like, huh? So like one of them is a 1C skill that gives her back the ability to lock guard and makes it back and does another Mobi -2 so that she gets back to her non-SP class level where she does Mobi -3. I guess it's mostly so that you can keep her in her SP class and keep her as being able to lock guard. She also got a 2C attack skill, which is just a standard attack skill mostly, but it also ignores guard if you're attacking a flyer, which is like, okay, there's like one flyer in the meta, which is Ares, and I guess Ultimator is there sometimes, but yeah, it's kind of weird. I guess for the purposes of this discussion, since we're discussing this, they've already announced the next patch, and we already know the upcoming 3Cs, including Narm's 3C, so we are going to include Narm's 3C in this discussion since we know about it. Narm's 3C has been announced recently, and it also helps her ignore guard, but only if they have 2 or less movements. But that doesn't work with SP Narm by herself because she cannot lock someone's movement until she hits them. So the only way this guard pierce is going to work is if she has somebody else there locking down movement for her, like Juggler, Beast Shocking, or I guess Layden, who can faction buffers. He can use Righteous Duel. But yeah, like SP Narm is just kind of weird to me. Like it is an improvement, like it is like a straight upgrade to normal Narm, but it just seems like a strange choice, and it doesn't seem like they actually gave her a lot of tools that make her super relevant. I don't know what you think.
Yeah. So when I see SP Narm, like my first feeling is that she's basically Illustrial at home.
Okay.
Yeah, obviously, like visual wise, she look really good. Like I think the art like is like a huge improvement.
Okay.
But like visual aside, I'm kind of like baffled about like what her focus is. So when I see SP now, like the only thing I can think of is that she will be even more core in Ancient Beckoning. Like she's already pretty much like the best DPS in Ancient Beckoning for Hilgen and Moonin, but this upgrade will push her like even further. So that's the only thing I can see of her being relevant. Like maybe you can run her with a team with people like Yulia, Leiden, Emmerich, or I don't know, Chakra trying to lock down people and kill. But usually when you have people those locked out, you just like lock down the tank and kill instead of like going through the trouble like locking people like close to the tank and then assassinate. So it's kind of backward design. I'm not sure, like, to be honest, I'm not sure what's the purpose with SP now. I think it's just like completely out of the left field. And maybe like, I don't think they even know what they really want to do with her. Like, obviously I think Narm has a pretty important place in terms of like the Wikigrisser world building, because she, in lore, I think she married Lance and found Kausat, which is like a very big kingdom and like the home of like other important characters like Ceui or later on like Clara.
Yeah, well, yeah, she's important in the lore. I'm guessing that's why she got an SP, because she's always been a popular character. She's like one of the first. She was like one of the first female characters you met in the series. Like, so alongside Chris, she's kind of representative of like female characters from Wikigrisser 1.
Yeah. So on that point, like when I see SP Narm, I was asking like why Narm and not Lance, because I think Lance is the more important character. He's basically the Leon of Wikigrisser 1, right? Like he's basically the main rival of Leiden, and you fight him like it's like a friendly rival kind of thing. Yeah. He basically the chivalric knight, that like the Leon archetype, where they like a chivalric knight like stand in as your adversary and you have to overcome him. So I was like, why not Lance and Narm? And Lance is receiving like very little love from Zilong. Like sadly to say, but I think like everything that he's gotten so far has been like really bad. Like his 3C is bad, his unique is bad. Yes. And he's even like a fashion buffer for Empire. Like they could have done so much more with Lance, I think. So I don't know. I don't hate Narm or anything. I think the SP looks like visual wise look good, but I just don't really understand the point of SP Narm, especially since I think there are other SR characters that kind of like more fitting to get SP than Narm right now.
Well, I don't think Narm getting the SP was necessarily a bad thing. I think that's a fine choice, not just because of her lore position, but also because she was already a pretty good SR. But you know, if you want to improve her for PvP, that's fine too. But it's like that's not what they did. They just basically gave her a straight upgrade. She's just like better at being Narm now. And like you said, the main takeaway from this is that, oh no, I have to redo Huggin' and Muggin' again because Narm is so much stronger now. She basically get like SSR stars and morph movement and like one of the best DPS true for Hilgen and Moonin. Like in just like overnight. So I mean, like when I think of like SR characters that would be receiving SP like after Freya and Hein, because I think Freya and Hein are very important to the Wikigrisser world building and lore in general, right? Yeah. Like after those two, I would be thinking of like people like Lance, like Chris. I thought those people would be, or like even like the R character like R Jessica or Lewin. I think those people would be receive like SP before Narm. So I was kind of confused, but I am fully expecting Chris to get an SP like at some point in the future, because Chris is not only very important but also very, very popular. Like she gets like in the community votes, Chris usually tops the list. So like I think that's why they didn't put Chris in any of the votes yet, because they knew Chris would win.
Yeah, I think Chris is like basically a female protagonist, right?
Right, she's like the main female character in like
she has like a very popular voice actor, and her skill set is already pretty good.
Yeah.
Like I actually think Chris is viable in a lot of past seasons. Like just the potential for getting random buff on like 3 or 4 people right off the bat, like getting like a tender breeze on like 2 people or something like that would be like crazy game breaking in a lot of situations already. Especially when you run a team that can make use of those buffs that she can give. So, and she is a good dispeller as well. With like she has a lot of good utility skill and mass attack.
Yeah.
So I always thought like Chris was good, and she just need like a little bit of a push to become a good character. And I always think that all protagonists should at least be SSR. So I was fully expecting Chris to be the next SR to get SP.
I think they're saving her up. Like it's like why they haven't given us the Liana or the Tiaras 3Cs yet. We are inching close to the anniversary of the game. The 3rd anniversary. So I do think we're going to see some big announcements there. I think that's why we haven't seen some things that people keep saying, why haven't we gotten this yet?
So to sum up, I think SP Narm is, I don't know. I guess I do like Narm, but I think this SP is kind of like unnecessary. Like it's just like a straight upgrade with like nothing really expand her role or like make her really viable in PvP. It's basically a straight upgrade to an SR character. Like maybe that's the direction they will go for other SR character SP.
Yeah, I mean, I guess making like her even better for PvE isn't like the worst thing, but it's just kind of strange because it's not like Narm was bad at PvE. She was already one of the best characters in PvE because she could endlessly kite enemies with her talent, and she can still do that in her SP, but it's just that she'll hit even harder now. And that's sort of my confusion with this SP, is that it does basically nothing new compared to the previous Narm. She does have like terrain master movement. She treats all terrain as grasslands when moving, and she got the Elven Cavalry Archers, which actually means that she always has them active, which means she has a built-in extreme magic bow effect. And that's actually one of the problems I actually was about to bring up, was that she doesn't need to use extreme magic bow, so that opens her up to use other weapons, like say the crystal stinger dagger, right? But it's like her skill was one of her only stats that actually went down when she became an SP class. I don't know, that made me slap my head because I was like, what are you doing so long? Like her skill actually went down from 208 from a ranger class to 139 in her new ranger general class. Okay, I know I went on a bit of a rant there. It's like I said, I don't think this is a bad SP. It's just kind of strange that they added this SP, and strange that they added her in a way that's like, it doesn't actually change that much about her. But hey,
yeah, I totally get you there.
Then again, like I said the same thing about Sherry, and I think I was wrong about Sherry. Like I think Sherry is a lot better than I expected her to be, and maybe the same thing will happen with Narm. I don't know.
Yeah, I hope I actually see someone try Narm in PvP and maybe show me like how you can actually utilize her potential.
All right.
Because I was wrong about Cherry too, and she's definitely a meta unit now.
Yeah,
no way around it.
Yeah. All right. So with that out of the way, I guess we're almost done here. We can talk about the content they added with this patch. So first, they ran the third run of the roguelike mode, which of course is one of the most popular PvE modes that people enjoy. I don't have a lot to say here. It's pretty much the same thing as the second run. The only significant thing I think they changed was that the group bonuses that you get for your team, those were changed a little bit. So instead of having like multiple levels of them, where it's like, oh, if you get to, because the last one I was like, you get to choose, oh, if I have 2, 3, 4 holy units on my team, my stats will go up. Instead of doing that, all of them only have 1 level now, and they aren't so restrictive anymore. So it's so one of them is more like, oh, if you have at least 3 infantry or lancer units on your team, your all stats get plus 10%. And then you get this other effect. And then there's another one that says, like, if you have 3 different unit types on your team, you get plus 10% stats and another special effect. So basically, this time they're not like pigeonholing you into like thinking like, oh, I have to have an all mage or an all holy team, which was kind of one of the problems with the last run. So yeah, that's the one thing they fixed. I think most of the rest of it is pretty much the same as the second run. The only other notable thing I think there is that this is where you get the SP Narm shard. So just like SP Freya, where SP Freya, they gave away the shard basically for free with the second anniversary event. You get to get SP Narm, the SP Narm Heart of Desire for free. So even if you don't enjoy this mode, if you are interested in SP Narm, I do recommend you playing this mode, at least this run. Otherwise, I'm gonna assume the next time we see SP Narm's shard is probably going to be from Dimensional Expedition again. They're probably just gonna dump the shard in there. That's what I'm assuming they're gonna do in the future.
I don't have a lot to say about this mode. Actually, I mean, like just like everyone else, I kind of enjoy this mode, but I think the second run they could have handled it a little bit better. There was the Scylla, the boss.
Oh yeah, the boss.
Scylla boss fight.
Yeah. I think the bosses were a bit overtuned the second run. Like it was. They kind of trapped a lot of people where it's like, I have a team that can beat one boss, but it can't beat the other boss, so I'm forced to reset, but then I'm going to run out of resets, and I'm going to have to pay, Trinity Crystals to reset more. I actually ended up beating it without spending any Trinity Crystals, but I just barely beat it. Like, I literally beat it on the final boss. I was actually having trouble because I created a team that could beat the Scylla boss decently well, but the final boss that was actually giving me trouble because my damage output wasn't high enough. So I barely beat it on the final turn, and I actually like one of my units died counterattacking into the boss, and they both died at the same time, and I won. I was like, oh yes, I won. and I ran out of Clocks of Forgiveness as well. So I was just like, oh, it was crazy. Like, yeah, but I like that's, and that was with me like kind of knowing what was coming. I mean, there was a way to cheese the mode because some people figured out that you could cheese the mode with like ranged attack mages, but you would need to be lucky enough to get the right talents, right? So I'm gonna admit that I actually haven't finished playing this mode on the run on China yet, so I can't tell you if at least for the moment I can't tell you if this run is as overtuned as it was the last time, but I guess I'll be sure to let you guys know when I actually get around to playing it.
Yeah. I think this mode is like probably the most fun PvE mode we'll get from Wikigrisser. Like, it is really like I don't know. I think a lot of people, like including me, we came from Wikigrisser from like Fire Emblem Heroes, right? So in Fire Emblem Heroes, there's a thing called skill inheritance, where you can sacrifice one copy of a unit and then transfer like 2 or 3 skill onto another unit. So like this mode is kind of like basically skill inheritance, and it's basically to show you like how broken the game would be if that kind of thing would be available in language.
Yeah.
It's a really fun experiment, but I hope they don't really overtune the boss as much as the previous run. And hopefully the rewards stay the same, because I think the second run the reward was like really good, especially for hard mode.
I believe the rewards are mostly the same. The main difference is that you get the SP Narm Heart of Desire this time, but I think most of the rest of the rewards are more or less the same ones. Okay, so finally, I am going to talk about this new mode they added. I know a lot of people are curious about this one, so I'm going to call it the Pole Star Kingdom. So this event is separated into 2 parts. One of them is the actual part where you play the game, I guess. It's called the Pole Star Kingdom. It is a new mode added actually to permanent modes in Secret Realm. In the Secret Realm events, this is the first time we've gotten a new one since Eternal Temple. So it is a pretty significant addition to the game. And the second part is God's Covenant. God's Covenant is basically just it's added to the main menu on the bottom of the screen. It's basically the place where you raise these summons that you get by playing the Polestar Kingdom. So I'm going to start by explaining the Polestar Kingdom, which is the actual Secret Realm event, the actual game part of it. So in this mode, I actually think it's kind of boring. So basically, it's kind of similar to Timeless Trial, where you will get stages in sets of 3. But you can't reuse heroes on these 3 stages, right? So you have to use a completely different team on all 3 of these stages. So you have to clear each set of stages of 3 with probably 15 characters or so. I mean, you can go in with less if you want, but for at least for my Chinese account, which is actually pretty weak, I was actually finding it a little bit challenging. But otherwise, it's like I actually find it kind of a boring mode because it's just an Narm mode where you it's like a set of challenge stages basically, and not a whole lot to say about it, I think. Otherwise, once you clear the stages, you get currency that you use to upgrade these summons that you get, and the stages are actually unlocked based on what level the summon is. So there is a wait to play aspect to it. So basically, once you unlock the summon, what you get after you clear the first stage, so you don't need to worry about playing too far into it just to get the summon. But once you get the summon, you start building currency, and this is one of those things like in a lot of these phone games where you have to wait for the currency to build up and you collect the currency, and the currency maxes out, but it only maxes out after 72 hours. So I don't think you need to worry too much about it being one of those things where it's like, oh no, I forgot to collect it. But it's every 72 hours, so it's actually not that bad. The one thing I will say is that the speed at which you get the currency is based on how far you advance into the mode. So the recommendation that a lot of people have made on the Chinese server is that as soon as this mode comes out, you should play it as far into it as you can, because you want to start getting the currency as fast as possible. And you'll understand why you want that once I explain the God's Covenant. So that's basically the Polestar Kingdom mode. Like I said, stages in sets of 3. You cannot reuse heroes, and it's mostly just like challenge stages. That's really all I gotta say about the actual game part of it so far. Do you have any questions about that?
Not particularly, but I do want to say that this mode also gave like pretty substantial stats increase, I think.
Oh yes, I was going to mention that in a minute. Yeah, I was actually going to mention that. That's part of the God's Covenant, which is the part where you actually upgrade the summon. So right now there's only one summon. It's Thor. You get Thor after clearing the first stage of the Polestar Kingdom. So once you get Thor and you clear stages in the Polestar Kingdom, you will get upgrade items, and you have to wait over time to get the currency to upgrade Thor. So basically Thor has an upgrade board, as it were. I don't know if you've ever played like Final Fantasy X or Final Fantasy 12 or something, where you level up on like a game board. That's kind of what this is. So you start in the middle and you level up by going outwards, and you can reset the board for free once, and then after that it costs Trinity Crystals. So don't worry about experimenting your first run, I guess, or like once people figure out what the quote-unquote optimum way of upgrading the board is, you can just use that reset. So don't worry too much about it when it first comes out. So like Ceui just mentioned, this board includes stat and skill upgrades, not just for the summon, but it actually includes stat bonuses for all player units on the map. So this mode includes permanent stat bonuses to your characters. So no, this is not going to be an optional mode if you want to keep up in the game. And I should note that these team stat bonuses are active even in PvP modes. I checked. It is active, at the very least, it's active in like AI arena. I am pretty sure it's going to be active in all the other arena modes as well. There's no reason to assume it will not be. So aside from that, this summon, you can deploy it alongside your heroes on the deploy screen. You get to choose one summon. You can only choose one summon. And they don't appear at the start of the map. You have to charge up like a power bar, sort of. And once you charge up the bar, you can summon you can summon this like robot looking thing. Right now it's Thor. So Thor has one single target attack and an AoE attack. He also does AoE damage when he first lands onto the map, and he also does like an extra AoE attack for allies near him when you attack, kind of like Sword's Breath. Also, Thor and all the other summons from God's Covenant, they only last a certain number of turns once you summon them, and you can only summon them a limited number of times per map. So it's not like they're an extra unit or anything. They're just like a burst damage unit almost. They do have a life bar, so they can die. So they're not going to tank hits for you for free. Well, they'll take at least one hit for you for free, I guess. And God's Covenant summons, they can be used on the following maps. They can be used on map events. They can be used in the Time Rift. They can be used in Anarchy. They can be used in Goddess Trials. They can be used in the Pole Star Kingdom. They can be used in joint battles, actually, and so they are usable in multiplayer. You can use them in certain Secret Realm events, and I think they mentioned like most farming Secret Realm events, you'll be able to use them. You can use them in Ancient Beckoning, so it's yet another reason to have to rerun Ancient Beckoning again. And you can use them in Guild Wars for whatever that's worth. So this means you can't use them in PvP, at least not yet. But like I said before, and like Ceui mentioned, they give you stat boosts, and these stat boosts do apply in PvP. Okay, I said quite a mouthful there. Do you have anything you want to add here?
Yeah, I was about to mention the thing about being deployed in Ancient Beckoning. So
yeah,
it's gonna raise the score level by everyone a lot if everyone actually bother to rerun Ancient Beckoning.
Yeah. I'm sure everybody is very excited about having another reason to rerun Ancient Beckoning again. But yeah, I mean, this is their new mode in quite a while. I don't have a lot to say about it. Like I said, I found the actual dungeon, or as it were, like the Secret Realm event is kind of like, it's just a set of challenge levels. I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Like, there's only so many variations of gameplay you can do in an SRPG, I think, without it getting too gimmicky, or without it becoming Fire Emblem Heroes, where you have a bunch of modes where like they aren't any different at all. At least they're doing something different with this summon system, I guess. But yeah, it's just another upgrade system, really, when you get down to it, because you're gonna need to do this mode if you want to upgrade the stats on your units. It's not like a significant amount of stats, I don't think, but it is like, well, it's enough to matter.
Yeah. I think it's around 30 attack or 30 intel. So it's actually a lot, like on DTS. So definitely like a must do for most like PvP active players, because like like every point of stat kind of matter in endgame PvP.
Yeah. So like I said, because your advancement of this mode is limited by Thor's level or the summons level, and the amount of currency you get over time is based on how far you've progressed. As I mentioned earlier, once this mode comes out, you want to rush doing it as soon as possible, which I think is really bad design. Like, they really shouldn't have designed it this way, but I guess it's too late now.
Like most of the new mode they have is kind of like hit or miss. So this one, I think, it's just like one of those annoying things that you do and then you forget about it, maybe.
I mean, with SRPGs, like, I don't think you really want maps that you do over and over. Otherwise, you get the first run of Ancient Beckoning, which was really exhausting. So I don't think there's anything wrong with like these maps where you do it once and then you forget it. Like, I think that's fine. It's just like, it just means that you're going to get to a point where players are going to ask for more content again very soon. But I mean, there's only so much that game developers can do about that.
Yeah, I agree there.
Yeah, and I think that's all we have today. Whew. So that we went on for quite a while. Thanks so much for joining me today, Ceui. Do you have anything final you want to add about this patch?
Thank you a lot for having me. It was really fun talking about it, and I really enjoy like expressing my thoughts on like some particular matters. Like, sorry if I ran for too long on some certain topics. I think like this patch overall has some really big change, like especially for PvP players, and according to the global schedule, I think this patch will fall like very close to playoff as well. So it's gonna be one of those annoying like influential patch right before playoff that we have to adapt to. So I'm half excited and half not looking forward to tackling all these change when it comes.
Yeah, I think mostly it's like Christiane. She's like a must pull. I mean, I don't think there's going to be any player that really should go without Christiane. Like, she's just so important. And I guess faction buffers in general are kind of nice to get. Like, everything else in this patch I don't think is super important. Even SP Narm isn't super important for most players, I think. I mean, sure, she's going to up your Hugin and Munin score, but I don't think it's going to be significant enough that it's going to shift most players' positions. Basically, if you are one of those people that was aiming to like steal the top rank, then yeah, for sure you want to get SP Narm. But I think for a lot of other players, like I think your position will be relatively stable, even if you don't get SP Narm.
I think it's mostly the Christiane and the new stat boost from the new mode that's gonna affect the PvP a lot. The other thing is like just like some kind of nice, some kind of but it's still we usually get like one very big characters like right before playoff or during playoff that kind of like affect ban pick and strategy a lot. So I think this patch will change a lot of people I don't know, like approach to the meta, because like Christiane is it's not as that meta defining, but it's still very, very influential characters.
Don't worry too much about your ranting, Ceui. People listen to me regularly on this channel, so that means they're used to it. And I think I hear in the background that Ceui's wife is like starting to pull his ear and tell him to stop talking about video games with some guy over the internet. So I think we can wrap this up for today. So thanks again, Ceui, for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
All right, thank you everyone for watching. We'll see you guys next time.